Welcome to Bonehead Weekly. I forgot how to say the name of the damn
Bone-leaded
Welcome to
Wheatley.
We're the head with the Tattness.
I miss cream of wheat.
I do too. Let me tell you, it is my honor. It is my privilege to absolutely make fun of the next hour of Keith Tattness McCleary. Welcome, Tattness. We're so glad you could be here. Now, when I say make fun, the reason I can do that is because we are separated by 1,800 miles, and I'm a pussy, and I know you could kick my ass. I just don't want that to happen.
And haha, you need a passport to do it.
Aha, I'm on the do not fly list. Teach them for me to show my junk.
Damn, I don't even know where to begin with all that, but I appreciate you. This has only been damn near 4 years now that we've been planning this.
At least. I'll tell you what's funny, and if you don't mind, I'll give them a little bit of history. The reason, so some people might ask, why are you friends with a former MMA and then actor and podcast host and series host and we'll get to your hot sauces in a second. By the way, I did my research and we're doing all, just saying, looked into this a little bit. I don't want you thinking that I wasn't prepared. And people are going to ask, why the hell? How did this happen? And Chad backed me up. It's the same reason why we do a segment for Australia every week. Yeah. God bless the internets, but for this one, we have to thank Mick Strawn, the world's. What's the most insulting thing we could say about Mick Strawn?
Oh man, there's so many.
Yeah.
God, let me get out the book. Hold on.
All right, hey Tattness, how did you meet Mick?
Damnedest thing.
That's how we met him too, by the way. It's the
right?
damnedest thing.
That's usually how any Mick Strawn story begins. It's the damnedest thing. Most people just leave it at that, but I'll go into detail.
I'm curious.
I'm not afraid. Man, I grew up loving anything Nightmare on Elm Street related. Yeah. And just came up one day, man, on social media as people you may know, and I'm like, get out of here. And so I hit him up and I'm like, for the longest time with my show, I wasn't doing guests. I wasn't having guests because I thought people would have a certain view of it of like, oh, you're just showing who you know and all that nonsense. And eventually I was like, screw it, man. People would like to hear from fascinating people. So, if the people that have a problem with that or want to view it as clout or whatever, let them. Who gives a shit, right?
Tell them to suck the snotty end of.
Right. So, so I hit Mick up and I'm like, hey, man, you want to, I'm doing this show looking for a guest. And obviously with your line of work, I'm a huge fan of everything you've done. Any chance you want to get on the show? And he was like, sure. And then out of nowhere, out of the clear blue, he cold calls me. And he's like, hey, I know you. And I was like, dude, we've never met. I would remember that. And he was like, no, I mean, I know who you are. I know your work. And yeah, I'd love to do the show. And then he goes on and tells me this huge story about how he traumatized us Canadian kids back in the day in the 80s with his commercial for the war amps that we got out here, teaching kids to stay safe while playing on around train tracks and such. I'm like, you're responsible for that creepy ass robot. You did this to me.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, I've got to see this commercial.
America. And Mick,
yeah, dude, I'll send it to you. It's Canadian. And you know what he said to me? And this is true to Mick Strawn's form. He's like, hell, I got to be honest with you. If I knew back then I was going to traumatize so many Canadian kids, I would have had way more fun on set when I was doing it.
Yeah, that is Mick. That is Mick.
Yeah. That is Stephen Norrington's #1 fan.
Oh, he'll get mad about that.
I know.
Tattness, I don't know if you know the story, but one of his
you asked for me to come up with something really mean to say about Mick, and I did it.
Yeah, but I thought you'd be like joking mean. I didn't realize you'd go for the jugular of talking about how there's a
how long have we known each other, you jacket?
Yeah, but Mick's been good to us. Me, I get that you stab me in the back, but him, yeah. But there is a director, Stephen Norrington. They worked on Blade together, and he may very well.
Right.
he may very well be Mick Strawn's nemesis. So I've always wanted to interview Stephen Norrington and then have Stephen go, Mick who? And then piss off Mick and go back and forth. Because Sam Raimi remembered Mick. I mean, all these other people we've talked to, these directors like, oh my God, Mick, Jeff Burr, Mick. And it's just be funny if his nemesis doesn't even realize. But anyway, we're talking too much about Mick. I'm curious.
I'm almost offended now because he calls me his Canadian nemesis. I'm like, hold up.
Well, Stephen Norrington, I think, is British. So there you go. Totally different. Now, I got to ask. We are not that popular. You're famous and we're mediocre at best. Now, that being said, every once in a while, we'll hear, hey, Bonehead. Okay. It doesn't bother me. It almost always puts a smile on my face unless my 6-year-old does it, and he does it quite often because he thinks it's funny. Bonehead. Do you ever go, you call me Tattness one more time? Or do you actually like being called that?
Oh my God. It's really funny. I guess maybe the luck of the MMA background. I get a lot of people that'll stare and kind of give me that look like I think that's who I think it is.
Yeah.
I have pretty distinctive ink so people can tell. You look at my forearm, you see my deceased child's name, you know it's me, right?
Right.
But they don't really tend to come up and say a whole lot of anything just because. And it's funny, man, because I'm like, I would like to think I'm somewhat approachable. I don't think I'm all that scary or terrifying. Like I'm not gonna bite someone's head off. I've gone to a store we got out here at Bulk Barn to get like almonds when I'm bulking for weightlifting and whatnot. And some dude starts filming me out of nowhere. And my oblivious ass, the first thing I thought was, does this guy think I'm stealing shit? And then it clicks like, oh, he knows who you are, dumbass. And I'm like, oh, damn. And then I felt bad because I'm like, dude, if you just came up and talked to me, we could have had a conversation. You could have got pictures. We could have done a video together, whatever. You don't have to be afraid to come and say what's up. But even my better half, she was kind of like, we went out for dinner one night and she was like, dude, that waitress is staring at you hard. Like she knows, but she's not sure.
Yeah.
And I looked over and like, oh yeah, that's weird. And it just weirds me out. But no, I don't really get a lot of people approaching me like that. It's just kind of from a distance. I've had a guy actually come up to the gym when I was lifting and literally go around one side to look at my forearm to see if my son's name is there. And when he saw it, he's like, oh. And then, but otherwise I've had people come up, ask me to sign things, but they've been super respectful.
Right.
And honestly, I think when they refer to me as such, it's because they feel like I don't know you personally. So to use your actual name would feel like disrespectful. Like I don't know you like that. Maybe I shouldn't, so I think it's a respect thing, honestly. So it doesn't really bother me.
That makes sense to me. What do you like being called by your friends other than, hey, you fuckstick?
Usually anything derogatory is ideal. Makes me feel right at home.
Sorry.
Honestly.
Well, that's why I got this. That's why I got my pullover zipped all the way up. So if I do say something derogatory, knowing your background, I just immediately do this.
Oh, dude,
he looks like a circumcised cock.
I go
respond to it to like yes.
Yes. So you have a fascinating life, and I know you get asked these questions all the time, but I feel like a lot of our listeners, just simply because we don't have a lot of people who come from your background on our show, we have a lot of people like Mick and directors and production designers and writers, and we have a few actors, but mainly artists and things like that. Not that you're not an artist, but those types of things. I'm for our audience out there, you have one of those got the shit kicked out of me. Dickens wrote this, rose out of nothing into something, still with tragedy with the most, and we're not going to talk about it because it's one of the more unthinkable things. And I don't think Chad or I never want to, I know Chad or I would never want to, we don't even want to put it in our head. And how you have survived all of this, it's fascinating to me. It's fascinating, and I have a deep admiration and appreciation for you for it, because I don't know that I could, especially the loss of your son.
Damn. I appreciate the hell out of that, man. That's heavy.
Well, I didn't mean for it to be heavy.
No, I mean in a good way. Like,
Yeah,
that's a huge
I
compliment.
just
Yeah, you don't realize he's a fucking asshole.
yeah, he is.
There we go.
Why you want to go with that? He is.
I've brought it back down.
He is.
No,
But
that's,
you know,
And I
would
probably
rather-
just woke up my kids upstairs by yelling that really loud.
but being able to rise above that, I don't know. I feel like, yes, I could maybe do this because we all have tragedy, this, and this. But being able to take another step and then doing another breathing and just the next day and the next day and waking up, I don't know that I could. So I admire you for it. I don't know that I'm really going for a question there as much as I can you tell the audience a little bit about your backstory about before you got into MMA?
yeah, bro. First of all, I appreciate the hell out of that. That actually means a lot.
I
So
mean every word of it. I don't know how you did it.
oh man. Honestly,
I couldn't.
something I learned from Corey Taylor was you gotta live for two now.
I got to tell you a story about Corey Taylor later.
Yeah, dude. I'd love to hear it. I'm gonna bust his
We've
balls.
we've only been next to each other 5 feet apart. We never actually got, but I will tell you a story about this later. You go.
That's amazing. Yeah, Corey taught me that like you gotta live for two now. And he learned that was something he was told by Vinnie Paul, who lost his brother. You know, and it just resonated with me, man. It was something that you know, I had a life of I left home at 15, left an abusive situation. You know, I didn't know my mom. My old man was abusive and whatever, always told me I wouldn't be nothing. Left home at 15, middle of winter, had nowhere to live. Just kind of worked until I had enough money to get a place. The bizarre thing was a bunch of years later, there was like an elementary school, like a grade school, that I used to go. They had these inset doors that I would go hang out within that little area to get out of the cold wind. And then a bunch of years later, I'd be standing in the gym of that school as a motivational speaker, telling these kids, like, you know, no matter what life throws at you, you can do whatever, man.
Yeah.
That was wild. Got into MMA and you know, did that until my son's diagnosis and everything. Like that really motivated me. Unbeaten, you know, fought a bunch for almost 2 years. And then when his diagnosis got real bad, like the condition only got worse. It was terminal. There was no fixing that. But they gave him 2 weeks to live, man. He gave us 2 years and 9 days. So he really motivated me, inspired me, and I was just like, man, whatever it takes, like I gotta make him proud one way or another. I gotta just go for everything. Never tell yourself you can't do something, because they, you know, at his age and being so fragile, it seems, as babies, they gave him 2 weeks, man, and he shoved their textbooks, you know, right up their ass and did his own thing. And I'm like, yo, if he could do that, I ain't got no excuse. I can do, you know, whatever I apply myself to. I gotta really go for it and make him proud and just appreciate everything that he will never get to do. And you know, that was just kind of an obsession at that point, that instead of sitting around feeling sorry for myself, I had to go do something, right?
Yeah.
And then the snowball effect, your name gets out more and more, you start getting acknowledged for this, that, the third, and then opportunities come knocking, and it just blew up. When his decline really hit, I stepped out of the fight game. I started my show, met a bunch of people through doing that, and then one day it was just kind of like, hey, do our show. And I'm like, cool, you've been on mine. Yeah. And so these two cats were like, okay, you're 6'5", 265 of muscle, and you got this energy about you. You got this personality trait. Why are you not doing movies, man?
Yeah.
I'm like, nobody asked. Like, so they're just like, hold up. And this is a live show. You can't take anything back. And they're like, so if you got the opportunity, you would do it? You'd be interested? And I'm like, hell yeah. And then they were just like, well, we're producers, so we'll talk off air. And it just was like, holy shit. So it just kind of took off like that, man. I have no words.
Yeah, it's curious. So why do you think you were attracted to MMA? Because it's the same question I've asked. We've had a couple of stunt people on here who were stunt people in Hollywood, and some of them kind of legends. And I always ask that question that most normal people don't understand. And what it is when you go to fall and you don't stop yourself, that is against every normal behavior of any human being, self-preservation, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like mixed martial arts and stunts goes against every single self-preservation of being able to, oh, I'm going to do this pratfall and it's going to look great and I'm not going to get hurt, but I'm not going to put my arms down. You're missing something.
I gotta stop, Joe. I
Yeah.
also fall and don't catch myself, but that's because I've accepted fate.
Yes. Also, he's a walking circumcised penis. But that being said,
I know the YouTube people couldn't see my I agree.
Yeah. So that being said, does that make sense to you? The question I'm asking, what's broken in you?
Oh, absolutely.
Because you couldn't drag these two assholes into that. We're not, that's not even in our vision.
I'm a crier, a pisser, a shitter, and every other bodily fluid you could think of.
I don't even know that I'm that, but we're going to have a good time and I'm going to joke with you. And at 30 minutes later, everybody's going to be, why were we mad at the fat guy? I get it. And honestly, I'm not as big.
Oh,
but
and I
being a
suck
bigger
my
dude,
thumb.
most people never mess with me anyway.
And I suck my thumb while doing all three.
Yeah. So betwixt the two of us, so what's broken in you that would lead you to the MMA? I know you get a lot of questions about this, but that's kind of my take on the question, if it makes sense to you.
I love it. I love it because it's so accurate, and I have an answer for it that might make sense to you.
Because some of the stuff people have not been able to answer.
Yeah, dude, I totally can answer that, and I think people will understand. So for me, it was like my old man, nothing I ever did. To this day, he will never, like, we haven't spoken since I was 15. I'm going to be 41 in January. To this day, like, you can Google my name and his heroes have been on my show, are friends of mine, praised me. He'll go to his grave without ever saying that, I was wrong. You fucking did something, whatever. Being, someone that was temperamental. And now when a grown man hits you like you're a grown man, when you're just a child, eventually you just don't feel it anymore. So I thought, I went into college for business accounting. That was boring as hell. I know how to do it, but it sucked.
Mm-hmm.
I applied for the military, and then because it's Canada, there was a 3-year wait list. So I was like, well, I got to do something in the meantime. My son, who passed, his mom and I were together at the time. And I said to her, how would you feel if I just got into MMA, man? Because I've been training my ass off for physical work and the whole thing. And it's just something in me that, I don't know, maybe it's the fact that my old man was like hardcore into like boxers and everything, like George Chuvalo, who was the only one that Muhammad Ali could not knock off his feet in 2 fights. Like, that was his hero. I met him multiple times. Dude's awesome. And so I was just like, I'm gonna shove this down his throat. And so I walked into an MMA gym one day that was owned and operated by a former pro WWE wrestler that went by the name Santino Marella. And the rest was history. And I just thought, you know what, if as a child I stopped feeling anything when a grown man hits me like I'm a grown man, what's a grown man gonna do to me now when I'm 265 and I'm grown? Yeah, it just made sense to me. But I'm not a violent person, which is kind of the funny thing. For me, it's a sport. It's about strategy. It's like, I don't like hurting people.
That I understand.
Yeah, we know what we're signing up for. And you know, you kind of get over it once someone gives you a good shot in the face. You're like, all right, now I don't mind hitting you.
I was just thinking that's true in MMA and porn. I almost made him spit. Did you see that, Chad? I almost made him spew. Almost did a spit take.
That was good.
That I can totally understand that. I can totally understand by it's porn. I was joking, but by it being a sport and being able to separate that, not wanting to hurt people, because it's true for a lot of because of our side gigs and me doing a lot of the conventions that I know we follow each other on social media where I moderate and I interview all these people. One of the things I've found over the years is a lot of these horror directors, you would think, oh my, no. The it's amazing to me the ones who are not even mean, they're vegetarians or vegans on top of that. It's just the goriest chopped up meat movie you've ever. It's like, oh God, no, I couldn't realize, you could just see it all over their face.
Right.
They won't even eat meat, much less anything else, or to hurt a fly.
Yeah, it's really weird how the horror community are some of the like kindest people, honestly.
Yes, I agree. They can be. There can also be a little taxing and weirded sometimes, but we're not going to go into that. So you're doing MMA. You start to act now. Can you talk a little bit about the podcast?
Yeah, man. So there was a time, it's a blur for me, honestly, because there was a time that literally my entire summer, I believe 2021, was 4 guests a day, an hour minimum each show. And I would have like Scott Page from Pink Floyd, Supertramp and Toto, Stephen Perkins from Jane's Addiction and Nine Inch Nails, Leland Sklar from, Phil Collins bass player, and Jon Birch from People Under the Stairs, all in a day.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then somebody actually had me on their show recently, and they're like, bro, you had Kenny Aronoff on your show. And I'm like, oh yeah, I did, didn't I? He's like,
forget,
dude,
don't you?
Favorite drummer. And I'm like, dude, he's a dear friend of mine, and I need to like text him now and apologize that I even forgot that he was on my show, because it was just such a blur that year, nonstop. I don't remember a lot of it. I got to go back and look at my own IMDb like an idiot. So when I do people's shows now, they're like, oh, what do you want to talk about? I'm like, bro, honestly, I'm like, not to sound like a dick. I don't want to sound like an insufferable prick or an egotist or anything. I'm literally telling you for your own benefit. If you Google search my name, you'll probably find more things about me than I even remember because that year especially was so hectic.
It's cool though that you've met. And that's another thing I completely, and Chad, I don't know if you feel this way or not, but do you ever go, oh shit, we did talk to them?
Honestly, there's been a couple of special effects guys that I've forgotten that I talked about. For example, I was like, one of my main obsessions, if I don't know if you can see Tattness, but it is the fact that Super Mario Brothers is one of my favorite movies. Truly love it. And it's been a lifelong, I've always wanted to talk to somebody who worked on the film, and I still look through IMDb going, who can I get? Who can we get? And then I realized, oh wait, we've already talked to a puppeteer who did the Goombas.
Who?
Oh, that's wild.
James booked him. Oh shit, Joe, I forgot his name.
Oh my God. I tell you, during COVID, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, and we got him, and the sad part was he had no stories. He goes, man, because that was a notoriously, I don't know if you know anything about it, was a notoriously bad movie set where just all kinds of, and I was like, oh, he's going to tell us something crazy. He goes, man, I honestly, nothing happened. I'm like, what? And then I ripped up. I'm like, well, there goes everything I had.
Oh, those are the worst shows, right?
Yeah, but then I've like kept, and then I always forget. But I think it's because of that I forget him. But I don't have a hard time forgetting certain people because we've usually talked to blue collar people, and I always like the stories that we don't normally hear, like let's just say Peter Weller and a P-Wagon. No, not P-Wagon. What was he called?
He was after, I think the word was poontang.
Was it?
Yes, there was actual, and I
It was
just watched the
something.
Robo
Anyway,
doc, and the guy and the assistant that what he was talking about was on that and talking about all the women that they would hook up with Peter Weller, that he was like, they would bring him over to him in the RoboCop outfit.
it was Poo-Tang Patrol or something. I can't
It's a
remember. See, I've already
something
there.
Poontang
That's what
spotter.
I.
It's something the Poontang spotter.
That's what I
love
forget.
that. Keith, you're just laughing. You're just like, ah.
So see,
Sorry,
yeah,
I
you can
interrupted it.
see, you
This
can
is
see.
this should be
I
about
don't
us.
forget guests. I forget the stories, and then I get them jumbled up. So
Right. So I was actually that guy that did that is on that documentary I was telling you should watch about.
yeah.
But they cut to Peter Weller talking about, well, yeah, I was young and single. He didn't deny it,
Yeah.
which I loved. He was like, yeah, no, I was having a good time. Anyway, so I get this question a lot, and it is a hack question, but I understand why people ask it. I don't get it from other interviewers, but I get it a lot from people at Scarefest and Comic Cons and things like that coming up to me going, who's your favorite person you've ever interviewed?
Oh my God. Yeah. That's the worst question, isn't it?
No,
especially when you've talked to, you were talking to 4 people a day.
Yeah, dude. It's so hard to answer that because there's so many fascinating people.
Give me 2 or 3.
Oh, I mean, Mick obviously has to be a given because
Wrong.
nobody busts my chops like he does. But I mean, dude, I had Howard Bloom on my show, who was the PR guy for everybody from Prince to Madonna to like you name them. And this dude had stories for hours to the point where I'm not even sure if I should list him as one of my favorites because, full disclosure, I was drinking a lot of beer that show. This was like a 2-hour show, 2.5 hours. Last hour and a half, I had to piss so bad I could taste it. And this dude did not stop talking. And I was like, he's brilliant. He's fascinating. But how much can I listen to about Mellencamp? Like, I got to piss so bad.
And I'm glad you went that way because I thought you were going to tell me that you got so drunk. But at the same, before you were telling the story, I was like, I could just imagine you jumping up and down in the seat. Oh, I just hit my knee, jumping up and down in the seat, going, "Oh my God!"
I thought I was no selling it so well, and then I was like, by 2.5 hours, like, okay, we'll wrap this up because so that way you can use the men's. And I'm like, how did he know, dude? But I think he was probably just like, there's no way you sat that long drinking, a few drinks and don't have to take a leak. But it was really fascinating because I was telling him in 99, 2000, especially, I bought Circus Magazine. I'm a huge metal fan. So I bought Circus Magazine and Hit Parader like religiously, in high school and whatnot. And he was like, I worked for both. I was the editor for both. I was like, come on, dude. This dude was a PR guy for like every musician imaginable, worked for both of those companies. And on top of that, he's like a physicist and wrote a book about physics and shit. I'm like, dude, like the dichotomy there is ridiculous for starters.
It's insane.
But favorites, man, Aronoff was great. I loved Aronoff. He was fantastic. Holy hell, Scott Page was great. Kenny Olsen, Kid Rock's guitarist, like immediate brothers, man. The second one, he even said on the show, he was like, dude, your birthday's in January. You got kids, do the family thing. Make the kids happy for Christmas. Then come January, break out, go to the islands for your birthday, somewhere warm. I'll come out and party, man. And, I was like, dude, so he's got to be one of them. Hell, I've had Dave Ferris from Rob Zombie's Halloween. He was great.
Yeah.
Shit, man.
He was partying with a friend of mine on social media, and we've met before too, and I've interviewed him. He is very nice, but he's partying with a lady friend of mine the other day. That's all I'll say about it.
Yeah.
Do I need to say any more to you? I didn't think so. Okay.
Well, now I want to know which one, but I guess I will talk about that after.
Well, I don't know. You don't.
I probably don't know.
Spearfest. Yeah, she's from Alabama. I don't know how they met, but anyway.
Did she come with a banjo on her knee?
No, she does not need any instruments. Anyway, moving right along. So I get that question a lot, and I always think, hold on, we have the same story. We were interviewing a famous writer, science fiction writer. Dude, how long did Peter David go? We all had to use 3 hours.
Yeah.
3 hours.
And it got to the point like
and we cut it off.
Yeah, one of the funniest stories is we kept going, and then we're getting like, I can't hide it. Like I was up, like you can only see this on YouTube. If I have to go, I have a swivel chair, and I will start doing this.
Yeah, I did too.
And so he was going, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, we're almost done. We're almost done. And I'm doing this. And then suddenly he sees Joe's Disney hat and he wants to talk about Joe. I'm like, oh no.
Oh no.
It's just true. But
the best part of that interview is when he put Joe in his boots about why Alien sucks.
He didn't put in my boots?
I lost my train of thought because I was sitting there talking about
says that. Put me in my boots.
Let's rerun. Fucking asshole.
Put me in my fucking boots, did he? I've got to use that tomorrow. I will work that into my lexicon.
Please do.
Put me in my boots.
Oh, God.
Tattness McCleary, put me in my boots. Oh, so but back to what you were saying.
I'm Jewish.
Anyway, back to what you were saying. Who is your so I have several, but who is your great white whale? Who's the one you haven't gotten yet and you tried and you kept working?
Oh my God. Oh, damn. That's a tough one.
It's to me, I get that a lot. Well, I don't get that one as much. I always get what's your favorite. And I actually got an answer for that. I don't use the podcast. I use I was like, I always go, well, I don't know if it's my favorite, but this is the best one I did. And I don't know if it truly is, but it's an answer and it makes everybody be quiet.
Romero.
Yeah, it's Romero.
Yeah.
I'll in my head, I always say George Romero is the best one I ever did.
Yeah, I know his son too. That's wild.
Yeah, no, George C.
Yeah.
Yeah, we live like an hour from him.
We live 30 minutes from him.
30 minutes.
Wow, dude.
He has a restaurant in Mount Sterling, Kentucky. That the one you're talking about?
Yeah. Shit. This question though. Good Lord, this question is tough because holy hell. Who haven't I gotten that I really want to get that I don't?
And this is gonna be good because you might be like, oh, I already got him.
Right. And I know so many people. There are people I know that are like, massive names that they don't have time, so I don't bother them because I don't want to play that friend card shit. I hate that. Because I know for two good people, they would be like, oh, I'll do it because you're my friend. I'm like, no, it's cool. I
will make them do it every fucking time.
Friend card. Honestly, to answer that question fairly and super honestly, I think for me, the only thing that comes to mind are the people that are no longer with us that I would have loved. So when I had Jan Birch on the show, the first, one of the biggest things he said to me was the year I was breaking into MMA and really getting a name for myself was the year Wes Craven passed. And he said to me, dude, Wes would have loved you and he would have loved to work with you. He would want to work with you. And that was so bittersweet to me because it could never happen now, but it would have been so awesome to have him on. And John Saxon, man, that would have been dope too. But, so living that I haven't gotten yet that I would love, Malcolm McDowell. We'll go with that.
So we met Malcolm. We've not interviewed him, but we met him a few years ago. And he was very nice to James and totally blew over me. That's all I'll say about that.
I'm a massive Malcolm McDowell guy, man. So that one would be super cool.
Yeah, and a few years later, I was about to do his panel, and his something illness or his illness in the family, and he had to leave that day before the panel, and I didn't get to do it. So
That sucks,
oh,
dude. That,
okay. If I had a quarter for every time I have one of those stories.
oh, no doubt. Yeah, it happens a lot more than
I
people
know.
think. But
Who's who? I love these questions. Who's the most batshit?
out of everybody I've had
Yeah.
on the show, oh damn. I'm not making any friends with this answer, but
You don't have to answer if you don't want to, but
no,
I
I definitely
will
want.
answer, but I
I'm
don't.
that guy. Like I'm
Yeah.
gonna piss people off. Uh, absolute most bat shit. Oh my god. Fuck. I know there's somebody. Oh my god. Like I feel like to be on my show, everybody has to some degree be completely.
Oh, I know, but we have had a couple that it was pulling teeth.
Yeah. Eh? Okay. Well, I don't know if anyone is like mentally unstable, but
That's
I
okay.
would say I will say what blew my mind was these British cats. Um, when going through my list of guests, the one that blew their mind was like, "Oh my god, you had Joseph Kelly on, who did Training Day and whatever,
Mhm.
Star is Born and all that great shit." And I'm like, normally I would understand maybe the excitement about that.
Mm-hmm.
That was definitely my worst show, in my opinion. Not like he wasn't a dick or anything. It was just like, dude just got off set filming a movie
Mm-hmm.
and jet lagged and in his motel room and just wants to sleep. Like you could just tell he doesn't want to fucking do this show right now.
Yeah.
He just wants to sleep, and I don't blame him. But it was not the same vibe as every other big name. This dude didn't want to be there. It made me not kind of really want to be there.
It does make you not want to be there.
Yeah, dude. So I was like, you know what, man, I'm gonna respect your time. I get the feeling you're going through. Like I've been doing 4 shows a day, every day. Uh, if this makes up for a lackluster answer, I spent like a year having a feud with Pink's drummer. So there's that. We're cool now. Everybody calm down. But there was a time, yeah, pretty public beef there that turns
Why?
out to be a misunderstanding. So he was a super dick to my personal assistant, and I felt like he was just mistreating her because she's a personal assistant. And so I kind of went in on him a little bit. This dude was Cher's drummer for like super long, and then Pink's drummer. And
Is
I'm
this
just
Mark
like,
Schulman?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Mark. Honestly, shout out to Mark. Love the guy now. We're cool. But at the time, not so much. But then he kind of hit me up and was like, "Hey, man, I came off a certain way, kind of going through a cancer scare." And I was like, "Dude, water under the bridge. None of that shit's important anymore. All that matters is that you're healthy and you get through this. And like, I'm pushing for you, man." And like, it was just squashed like that. But, you know, it just shows you don't know what people are going through, right? Him and his wife both, and I think the same year, had a cancer scare. And it's like,
Wow.
no wonder you came off a certain way. That was not known to me at the time. And everybody knows I'm a big mouth and I get, short fuse and
No, I completely understand that, because that's why people ask me about who's a big dick and who's not, or about that. And I always say, well, truthfully, celebrities are like anyone else.
Yeah.
90% of them are absolutely fine. 10-15% are assholes. So it's just like walking down the street. Now,
Right.
I've had people who are celebrities or who work with celebrities argue that point, that my number is way too high of the nice ones. But I always do give them a little, as you I hate the word, but give them a little grace, because the amount of attention that people want from these folks is exhausting. And not all of them are extroverts like this guy. In fact, I'm always shocked that a lot of them are fucking introverts.
That's the weirdest thing. I literally just did a show where I talked about that. I said, I don't know what it is about us introverts that end up with, it's like a sick joke where this is the career path we end up with. Because I'm introverted as hell,
So was
but I
Chad.
know how to flip that switch. And like, it's just for me, it's not that I'm antisocial. It's not that I don't like people. I love people. It's just once I'm around so many energies and personalities for a certain amount of time, I need like a full day or two to just recharge my batteries in absolute solitude and just be okay again. Or else I get overwhelmed, I get flustered, I get so like doing signings and shit is just super draining to me, even though everyone's cool, everyone's super nice, supportive. I need like 2 days just to process. People care about you enough to want you to flick your wrist a couple times and sign something. It doesn't make sense to me, man. I'm not that dude, you know?
Chad drains you,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah. The only thing I have is I am the same way. It's just I also have my introvertedness also attacks me when I like being around people. I like talking to them, but if I get into a room like that, like I get attacked by the introvertness, and I don't know what to say. I just need to back away and gather my thoughts and go, okay, how do I approach this situation? And of course, in those situations, you can't do that. So then I just like automatically just shut down.
Right.
So
whereas I can do a show, and if it's a good show, this past Scarefest was a really good show for us, and we did really well, and we had huge panels. I didn't sleep 3 hours that Saturday night, 3 hours that Friday night. It's like heroin. Well, I've never done heroin, but I haven't. I've done other things, but I've never done heroin. But I'm assuming
check between
that
his toes.
it couldn't be much better. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I did a show where the host was like a pro wrestler and he was asking me like, you know, about the name and the whole thing and where that come from. And I'm like, dude, that's an uneventful story. But it kind of leads into how things develop, where I learned to use the name, like you asked, if
Yeah.
people call me by my actual name or what. And I was like, dude, I've come to realize like Tattness became this mask you just put on when I like Keith McCleary, the person, cannot deal with this right now. Flip that switch, put that, you know, do your job, dude. You know what I'm saying? When you just are so burnt out or dealing with personal matters and you can't be on for people and be that smiley, you know, yeah, I'll sign your shit kind of dude. You become like that dude that's kind of yourself up to 11 and just do what you got to do. You know, not a character. I'm always myself 110%, but sometimes you got to jack it up a little bit, you know. So it's almost a comfort blanket at this point.
Yeah, unfortunately, my switch is a 54-year-old alcoholic high school janitor.
But
I love that for you.
but that leads me. Chad's got a question. I didn't mean to interrupt, but it leads me to one more point. Since you're a music fan, so to answer your question, the hardest person, not on this podcast, but that I ever had to moderate interview for a convention was Doyle Wolfgang von Frankenstein from the Misfits.
No doubt. Oh my God, don't get me started.
Have you got stories about him?
Not him, but I have a feud with one dude.
He is an introvert and he doesn't know where he's going to be. He has a host of some issues, and I'm not going to out him or anything here. He was never mean to me. But when you've got to fill 45 minutes on a stage, it was tough. And it's funny now, but when I'm in the thick of it, trying to get through it, it wasn't funny. Now, I rose to the occasion and we did get through it. And the only thing that helped me when he has something that we all have in common, he likes kids. And there was a kid up front, and the kid was asking the most asinine questions, but he was just laser focused of, I'm going to be everything for this kid. So actually, as mad as I was trying not to be, it helped me get through. Oh, he's not a terrible human being.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's a host of issues where he shouldn't be doing this shit. And I asked him about it a little bit, and he finally opened up of when he puts the makeup on and the things down here. That's that person. When it
Right.
comes off, because he was talking about Disneyland. Somebody saw him and his kid at Disneyland. He's like, no, I don't have it on. When you're telling me this, that's exactly what's going through my head.
Right.
Talk about that. The makeup's on and I'm on stage and I'm up here.
It makes sense, right? In a weird way.
Like a work uniform, like Chad's
Yeah.
54-year-old gender. He's right. Like a work uniform. I put this on and what I go do.
Yeah. Because there's this, and then flip the switch. I'm just got a mop and I'm going, those damn kids.
No, I'm glad you get it, because I didn't
Yeah.
know if I was articulating that well.
So that's
but
it.
that's exactly.
Yeah, I completely understand. Well, I understand from that story, and now hearing you, it just makes sense. I get it. It's sometimes it's the same thing of being in leadership roles or supervising people. Yeah, I know you had a shitty day, but you're the boss. Walk around and say hi.
Right.
You don't get to do it. You
I
don't
love that you brought up Misfits too, because my
Please.
one feud that I still stand by today is with somebody that was a part of them.
Yeah.
AC Slade. And I don't want to throw shade on your show and burn bridges for you.
You won't burn anything. The Misfits
we're good
are coming on here.
Okay, cool.
We've never invited them.
Okay.
Doyle was fine enough. And it's a good story to tell at parties when I'm drunk, because I could tell more. I'm just keeping it fairly concise and putting him actually in his best light.
Right.
I'm doing him a favor by that story, but keep going. So you burn all the bridges with the Misfits.
AC was going to be on my show. And then things came to light. Joey Jordison passed, and from Slipknot, and Murder Dolls, and a lot. And I caught wind of, and I got history there with Joey. And so when I found out Murder Dolls were doing right by Joey and we're not going to allow any further merch or anything like that, with Joey being the founder of the band, once that's done, once he was gone, it's over.
Yeah.
AC was literally nothing more than a session musician with them. When their rights for the name and the merch and the whole thing came up and they didn't renew, he went behind them and started selling Murder Dolls merch, with none of the money going to Joey's estate or family or anything. And I'm like, you know what, dude? Now I get it, why every band you've ever worked with wants nothing to do with you. And then you go and pull a stunt like that, screw that guy. He was not on my show, thankfully. Canceled that right quick. And I stand by that one. I try to, kind of put an end to all my feuds with people, but that one sticks, screw that guy.
Well, we had a similar, and we actually won't out the person, but we got a director, and
Joe and I were both excited about, and then
I should have Googled more.
Yeah.
I looked into I knew the career. Chad knew the career, and then Chad messages me that day we're going to do it.
Yeah, because I was like, I didn't know this either.
And those allegations were strong.
I think I might know who you're talking about. I'm not going to say anything, but
yeah, we'll talk about it.
We didn't do it. We didn't do
it.
We didn't do it.
I get it.
And by the way, it was hard. And I will say on my part, because all I wanted to talk about was the art that the man had created, and trying to separate the art from the artist is tough. But Chad said, well, this is my line in the sand. And I took an hour and I realized Chad was right.
Yeah.
Couldn't do it.
That sound about right, Chad? That how?
Yeah. I told him, I'm like, you all can do this if you want to. I will have no part in it. I will not be mad. I will not be upset, but don't put my name on it. And I was done. I couldn't do it.
I respect that. I definitely respect that.
But it was such a bitch trying to get him on the show from it still broke my heart of all the effort that went into it. But Chad made the right call, and it took me. I was not as quick to get to the right part of it as Chad was. So
well,
it's a compliment.
as a fan as well, we don't want to believe the worst. It's
Right.
hard to accept it.
It
You know?
is, but some of these, it's not just smoke. It's like fucking flames in a forest fire.
Yeah.
On some of these
You just kind of
elevators.
wish it wasn't true. And it takes a while as a human to process that.
That's absolutely true. That's accurate. And I know we're real quick. Chad has a question, and I want to come back to Corey Taylor.
Well, I'm actually got two questions, but since we were talking about introvertedness, because a lot of your guests are musicians, correct? And sorry, throat. I know a lot of musicians. I grew up with a lot of my friends were musicians. Musicians are really introverted. They are. They just want to learn. I mean, that's why they become musicians to begin with. They don't have a lot of, they don't go and talk. They don't hang out in crowds. They just go and they practice their instrument and they get really well at it. And so then they become famous for that. And then it leads to not having great interviews. So how have you handled that, dealing with so many musicians? Because I imagine most of them are introverts.
It's the damnedest thing because I was interviewed for a magazine by Sherry Nelson, Maxim magazine model and actress. And she said to me, you had a musician, I think it was Stephen Perkins actually, where she was like, he opened up to you about some things that on my show he didn't even talk about, and we're pretty close. She's like, there's something about you, man, where you just get people talking. And I'm like, that's a huge compliment to me. And maybe to her point, Kenny Olson, when he did my show, he had a 7-hour drive ahead of him, and he pulled into a church parking lot in his car. He was going to do a show. He pulled into a church parking lot, gave me 2 hours of his time. And I was like, dude, so grateful. I watched you shred at Woodstock 99. Massive fan. Love you to death. This has been the best conversation, but like, you should probably get back on the road. You got a long trip ahead of you. I'm trying to respect your time, and I don't want you, to kind of bury yourself. And I had to cut them loose after 2 hours. I don't know what it is, man, but they just talked. Leland Sklar was like, man, I really wish you would have had me on sooner, because my book is currently in the process of being published, and I would love to have you in it. And the hilariousness of that book was, it was called Everybody Loves Leland, but he wanted every celebrity he knows to flip him off in the pictures. And, and I thought that was genius. I'm like, dude, I would love to be a part of that. Kenny Lee Lewis from Steve Miller Band was on the show, and like, he talked for hours. And Leland was great. Scott Page from Pink Floyd was the one that told Aronoff, you need to do this dude's show. I had such a blast. And like, I think Scott Page probably thought because of the age gap, we'd have nothing to talk about. And we just had the best conversation, and we went on for hours. So I don't know what it is, man, but they just open up, they talk to me, and they give me more time than I could imagine. And I think the only other person that gave me way more time than I ever expected was probably Johnny Brennan from, Jerky Boys and Family Guy. That blew my mind. That dude was great.
I will say, I when you said Leland Sklar, I'm like, I knew that name, but I didn't know who he was, and I looked him up, and I just said, yeah, that guy's an introvert.
Yeah. He looks like Merlin, eh?
Yeah, he does.
Bill Collins, bass player, man.
And he worked with James Taylor, which is awesome too.
Yeah, man.
So then that leads me to my next question, because you haven't been doing it on purpose. You've just been talking about the show, but you've been name dropping like crazy. So
terrible for that.
No, and it's
not a bad thing. No,
it's awesome. It's awesome. And this is what had my question is, how did you even get to know all these people? Because that's phenomenal. And then please don't take that as an insult. When you're name dropping, my mouth is dropping, going, oh my God, how did you meet all of these people? Because I am just impressed beyond all.
It's so wild, dude. Like exactly why I didn't want to have guests on my show, because I thought like it might come off that way, right? And I'm so
No.
No,
paranoid of
never.
that. Um, the literal two cats that had me on their show that asked me why I'm not doing movies happened to be the PR guy for all those people.
Yeah.
So they were feeding me all these guests, and we just hit it off immediately the second we started recording.
Mm-hmm.
That we became friends, and it was just that simple. It was so crazy. Kenny Olson was like, dude, my PR person told me like you and I are gonna be bros immediately, and sure enough they were right, and here we are. And I'm like, damn. And then one's telling the other, you need to do this. And now Kenny Olson, Scott Page, and Stephen Perkins are all in a band together as we speak.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So it just snowballed. And then Scott Page was like telling Aronoff, you need to do this dude's show. I had a blast. I don't think he expected that we're gonna like have anything to talk about, but we talked business, we talked shrooms, we talked everything in between. Dude's had a hell of a career. And again, you look at Scott, you look at Kenny Lee Lewis. I told Kenny, I was like, dude, I grew up, my old man always told me I wouldn't be shit. I remember he had one of those wood panel cassette cases with the pull-out drawers that's all lined with velvet back in the 80s and shit. And I said, I always remember seeing the best of Steve Miller Band tape, because my favorite color at that age was blue. And you had that tape with the horse with the fire mane and the whole thing, and the cover's blue. And I just always stood out to me. And here you are coming on my show saying, dude, it's amazing to finally meet you. I'm like, do you know who you are, bro? Like, do you know what you've done for a living? What do you mean it's awesome to finally meet me? Like, it was just mind-blowing. So, snowball effect, man. You got Kenny Aronoff that played with everybody from Bon Jovi to Smashing Pumpkins, Avril Lavigne, played with Aerosmith, like did the song with Bon Jovi for Young Guns, which is one of my favorite movies. And I'm like, this dude's like giving me his number on air. Like,
Yeah. So before and I've kept you for an hour. Go ahead, Chad.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, back to the name dropping thing, and the fact that you didn't want to start doing interviews. It's great that you did, because that's one thing I've really enjoyed doing about this show, especially when we started getting guests and we started getting those like maybe lesser known, like you're talking to people who were there, who are in the band, but who may not be as well known. And what you're doing is you're creating an archive.
Yeah.
So for future generations who get into movies or music,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, like for example, with the Steve Miller Band, they know Steve Miller, but maybe they want to dive in and find more information. They can easily go to Tattness, and now they've got, Kenny Lee Lewis, or they can go look up Leland Sklar and get stories that they wouldn't get. Same with us, where we interviewed storyboardist Peter Von Schally, and, who's going to know, they can maybe one day find a story about where he hitchhiked with, or where he did a cross-country trip with Leonardo DiCaprio's dad and picked up a hitchhiker whose name I've forgotten, who's also a famous person. It's just things like that. So yeah, no, I'm glad that you ended up doing guests, because you're going to get stories that nobody else will, because people in mainstream media don't seek those people out. They just want the big names.
Yeah, and I'm so grateful for it too, man, because like it was such a good time. And when you lose a child, I just want to be able to leave something behind for my kids. Be like, man,
Right.
in spite of the way it started out for Dad, like he did some shit,
Mm-hmm. Well, and I hate to, but I want to talk to. I got to tell you a story. This is about you, but I want to tell you a story.
No, I love it, dude.
Corey Taylor was in Huntington Comic-Con in August. So you guys are close?
He's a huge comic fan, man.
He's at Comic-Con. Also there is, oh my God, Chad, my mind just went blank. SpongeBob's real name.
Tom Kenny.
Tom Kenny. Tom Kenny, who's friendly enough with me because I've interviewed him a couple of times, but we don't know each other. We're just at the same things because the promoter brings him and his band. His band's awesome. So it starts to get out a little bit that Tom Kenny and his band, the High Seas, are going to be, after the cosplay contest, are going to go out and they've got a band. They're going to be doing a concert, but it gets out that Corey Taylor, huge fan of SpongeBob, supposedly. And has he told you this story?
I could tell you some things, dude. Like,
well, the video went viral because what happens is, as I'm getting done with it, so this is the part of the show that I don't know that I need to tell everybody this about my personal life, but I'm going to. So I do everything, even if I act like I'm drinking or whatever, I do everything straight. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in Huntington, got a hotel room. The kid's nowhere near me. He's 2 hours away. I can finally let my hair down. Don't have to worry about anything. And about 20 minutes, right as the end, as I'm emceeing the cosplay contest, I know this concert is going to happen. I know Corey's going to get on the stage later to do the SpongeBob theme song with Tom Kenny. I know all this because it's been told to me. I know all this is a huge crowd. I pop maybe a gummy because I know it's going to kick in right as I'm out in the crowd and I don't have to do anything and just enjoy the show. So there's a beer fest going on across
He
the
really
river
likes those
across from it.
Haribos.
What'd you say? Yeah, I love those gummy bears dancing here and there and everywhere, bouncing here and everywhere. Anyway, all these drunks are coming out and they're all flooding all these geeks. And somehow, some way, somebody's let it leak because that crowd's bigger than it should be that Corey Taylor is going to be there. Okay. As I'm about to walk away, remember 30 minutes ago, I dropped something and it's just now kicking in. The manager for this convention and several of the other conventions who works for the promoter, I'm good friends with all of them, grabs my shirt. I used to be over 300. I've lost about 70 pounds, but I'm still 6 foot tall. Grabs my shirt, says, "You're going to have to stand at the end of the stage. We've got problems. People are going to try to rush us, and people are blah, 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 blah. You're going to have to stand here and be security." Now, what did I tell you happened 30 minutes earlier? It's kicking in. So if you go and watch that whole thing when he finally got up there and went viral, I'm over on the corner of the stage. You can watch it. I can see me pretending not to be high as a kite.
This led to so many stories for me, dude.
Oh my God, tell him. So I don't know him. We met briefly because he didn't do a panel. Will you tell him? It's like, yeah, that dude who was supposed to, that wasn't over there. He didn't mean anything by it. He didn't know. They had 2 or 3 of the young buxom ladies who work in the comic shop up front too, trying to make sure and all these drunks just kept piling through. And nobody got hurt. Cops had to come pull a guy out of a tree. And once again, I'm high as a kite and this guy's in a tree. So go ahead.
Okay, first of all, that whole SpongeBob song shit is the bane of that man's existence.
Is it really?
It so is, dude. He's like, bro, when I do fucking shows now, he's like, I've written over 150 songs.
Yes, I love this story.
And all these miserable pricks want to hear is this fucking SpongeBob. He's like, I did to placate my child one time, and then it became like a demand, and he'll get booed if he doesn't do it. So it really irks him. But
I did not know that they sold it to them as he was a big SpongeBob fan.
No, it's so he's a fan of the dude that originally did the song because like he's a badass. But my assistant and the agent I had for like the MMA shit, he's not really a movie agent, so
yeah.
like, but we're still in touch. But they can tell you some horror stories. I'm kind of a dick, so like I like to have fun.
Mm-hmm.
And my idea of fun is not necessarily the same as theirs. So like when they drag me to malls and shit to do appearances or whatever, I would start counting down and they're like, what does that even mean? And then like, oh no, they realized I pop mad gummies and it's just a matter of time, dickheads. Because I'm going to get unruly and have fun, and you're responsible for keeping me under control, and that's hard to do when I'm stone sober. When I'm high, good luck, bitches.
That's
Like
great.
that agent, like I would text him at like 3:30 in the morning with shit like I'm high as a kite, and he just knows. And I'd text him with shit like, how come there's Batman shampoo but there's no conditioner, Gordon? And he's just like, I fucking hate you. And that's how I know I did my job right. And I'm like, dude, for 8 years, you've kind of stuck by me. I think you kind of like me a little. Because if I didn't text him at all hours for a couple days, he'd be like, you good? What's wrong? I'm like, nothing. It's like, you haven't bothered me. I actually got a couple nights sleep. You sure you're all right? And I'm like, yeah, I was trying to be considerate, but thanks, dick.
Chad, were you gonna say something?
No,
Oh, okay.
I'm just laughing.
So we need to wrap it up. I've kept you on over an hour. I just wanted to tell you the Corey Taylor thing real quick. Had a good time. Seemed like a nice guy. But what do you have coming up? So where they can find the Tattness podcast, where on all podcast platforms?
Yeah, man, everything, including Audible and the whole damn thing. It's been on hiatus for a minute because revamping, and we're gonna go live with Tattness TV and do the whole live thing and interact with the fans and whatnot. But thus far, it's been the radio show. But the documentary that you have agreed to be a part of, God bless you. I appreciate hell of you for that.
No, I want to. Mick sent me his clip. He sent it to I looked at the email and it was to me and Nick Benson, and I was like, I cannot play this at work because I got it today. And I came home with a kid, and I knew should not play it at work. So actually when we're done here, I'm going to watch it and then reach out about doing mine, because I actually have a story I want to tell about the Boneheads were this close to doing a podcast for you. Do you remember this?
Yeah, dude, and
We
then
actually did proof of concept. We actually did an episode, and then we buried it because I don't know that anybody was happy with it after, because it was basically us unrated, which is just us saying fuck a lot more.
I love that. That's right up my alley. I've been on my best behavior on this show because I was like, I'm not sure your language parameters, and I don't want to
You were
get
good. You can say
crazy with
whatever
it.
you want.
But the documentary has been wild as hell, dude. I've had like straight up people from Mexico, like in metal bands that I don't know personally, that literally were saying like, I'm a Canadian national treasure, and to asking Canada to protect me at all costs. I'm like, what? So I thought, you know what? That's the best contrast for anything Mick's gonna say, because he's always busting my balls for being Canadian. So I was like, this just works out. I'm gonna send you the new version of Mick's video that we polished everything just to make it look a little better. Because as you know, when you do phone videos, you get a different size and the whole thing, and so you got to have things look right. And so, and then we add a little extra. But yeah, dude, the number of people involved from like the UK, US, Canada, everything in between, Mexico, it's wild to think that people actually have an opinion on me in all these places, and feel some sort of way. It's actually humbling as hell. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that you guys, for like almost 4 years now, want me on your show. I thought you'd lost interest in
No. It wasn't. It was sketchy. And honestly, you shouldn't be grateful. We should be grateful because God, I was actually, what's funny is I was being nice to you before we push record. And then I said, this will end when we push record, right? So as I won't say, I actually, the exact words were, we'll get the dick sucking out of the way now, is I think what I said. But I did mean when I said, I admire I don't know a better word than tenacity, because like I said, a couple of those things I could get over. And then you get one or two more, and I don't, just roll me over in the grave. Just lay me there, you know.
I think I literally tell people all the time, and I thought I was kidding, but maybe it's true, that I run on spite. Just
You probably do. It's not a bad thing. Everybody's got to find their thing. I like to play the game where I think everybody thinks I'm an idiot. Not far off. But seriously, I was like, oh, it's a mindset. It's your mindset of whatever motivates you, wherever everybody motivates you, whatever it does. I get that. But before we go, podcast, documentary, and do you want to talk about the hot sauces? Because I was reading this article where this lady was being very nice to you. I forgot where. Hold on, I actually had her name pulled up too, and she was talking about the hot sauces. Oh, Larissa Stanton for medium.
Oh yeah, man. So yeah, this year, 2024, I'll be launching my own line of hot sauces. That the goal was to give flavors that you don't get those options. So I've got a smoked cherry and whiskey,
Uh-huh.
and a grilled watermelon and coconut rum, and grilled pineapple and spiced rum, and a coffee flavor for those that like their caffeine. But if you put coffee in chili, it gives it depth. So I thought this would be a good sauce for that. Aside from that, I've actually been in talks as well with a brewery in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, about launching my own line of beer as well. So there's that.
It's awesome, buddy. Truthfully, I'm glad that you've got your fingers in multiple holes. I mean, multiple pot. I mean, whatever Chad says. But I mean, you've got to get your brand out there. You got to keep building your brand. You got to turn into the MMA Jimmy Buffett.
I'm glad you elaborated on that, because you almost got me divorced before I even got married. With that terminology.
I heard the laugh in the background.
Listen, listen, ma'am. It's just my holes. He's good.
Well,
I'm supposed to be being quiet. Stop.
No, you don't have to be quiet. Oh my goodness. If I knew she was there the whole time, I would have brought her ass into here. I would much rather talk to someone pretty than you.
She wants to come say hi.
Oh, is she a chubby chaser like you? Clearly not, because you've lost all that weight to be in those movies to be so purty. Come say hi.
I dropped some muscle. But I'm heading back to the gym.
Hi.
Hey. Now that you can see us, this is my penis. How you doing? Hey.
It's a full-size condom.
I honestly did not mean to laugh. I've been trying so hard to be quiet. I had the microwave on at one point and I felt really bad. But
I saw you.
Well, that explains why I started twitching mid-interview, but that's
you were in the refrigerator earlier. It's all good. Hey, you tell this son of a bitch that we need to come up and visit.
Please,
anytime, brother.
I would love to meet some of you people in person.
What do you mean by you people?
Important people.
We're not important. We're losers from Kentucky. You're good. We're no one. We just happen to meet interesting people. And
Your
ask
fried chicken says differently, sir.
That's true. Hey, none of that X-rated stuff on here, lady.
Nice meeting you.
I'm joking. Come back and give us more.
Nice to meet you guys.
Nice.
Pervert.
I know.
On air.
Pervert.
Mom, not in front of the guys.
All right. So we've got all this stuff coming out. It's not going to be another 3 years. When we get the documentary done, we're going to have you back on the show if you don't mind.
Dude, anytime. Say when.
Let's have you back on. Yeah. No, let's have you back on when the documentary is done. And let's do something together. Eventually, we just need to figure out whatever it is.
Bro, if there's ever a time where you just can't sleep and you need someone to fucking bore you to fucking sleep, hit me up and I'll come on and I'll fix you right up.
You're a lot of things, but you're not boring.
I appreciate the hell out of you, man. This was an absolute honor and pleasure and a blast. And I would do this for like 3 hours straight if you'd let me. So it's probably good that you're.
Hey, yeah, I would do it for 3 hours straight if I didn't need to go to work tomorrow. Also, I need to pee too. I've been drinking water the whole time.
I know that struggle. I don't want to be the Howard Bloom of your career. So
No, you're much better. But I'm going to end this, and then we'll hold on for 1 second, okay?
All right, brother.
Thanks for being on the show.
Oh, dude, thank you guys, man.